Let me discuss several sample-oriented settings that can affect your final concentration. And that will include a set that are related to the multiplier, and then I'll spend time explaining the ISTDdilution setting, the concept of the multiplier. The multiplier is a sample-based setting that affects the final concentration. So we have a calculated concentration, we use the multiplier, and end up with the final concentration. So there are several factors which can affect the final concentration. The first one being the dilution, or sometimes called the dilution factor. That will affect the multiplier. Also, the combination of the total sample amount divided by the sample amount, which is a sampling adjustment, can also affect the multiplier, which again will change the calculated concentration, take into account that factor, and give you the final concentration. We look at a demo of these sample-based adjustments. Let's look at sample 2 and concentrate on the final concentration. Notice that the final concentration at this point is the same as the calculated concentration, 4.3. The dilution is by default 1. So if we were to dilute the sample by a factor of 2 and look at the final concentration, you would see that it is now doubled because you have diluted that sample. So that's one setting. Another setting which can work together is the total sample amount and the sample amount. So again, I will say that the total sample amount is 2, and the amount that I've used in my sampling process is 1. And if I go over and look at that calculation, final concentration, I will again see that it's doubled, which makes sense if you think about the logic of what the final concentration should be in that sampling scheme. To leave the topic of the multiplier, I need to point out that where the multiplier gets applied is controllable. Here is the documentation which describes applying the multiplier to the ISTD. The multiplier can also be applied just to the target or the surrogate or a combination. So let me demonstrate that by going over to the method editor and looking at the globals setup. I can see from the global setup that by default the multiplier is applied to the target or the surrogate, but not the ISTD. So these are settings that come from the method as to where and which sample type these multipliers are applied to. Not least, let me discuss ISTDDilution. ISTDDilution is a sample-based correction, and where this can be useful is if, for example, you're weighing out the ISTD for each sample and it varies slightly, or in the case where you mistakenly added, let's say, twice as much ISTD to the sample, that's another case. So the ISTDdilution is going to be affecting the ISTD concentration, and you will get the ISTD concentration for that sample. So let's take a look at how that works. And this does work independently from the multiplier and the multiplier sample correction schemes. Take a look at how this works in practice. We're again on sample 2, looking at the final concentration of 4.3. So what I'm going to do here is set the ISTDdilution to 2, and then go over here with the final concentration, and you'll see that it has doubled because the ISTDdilution has changed by the factor of 2. So that gives you the ability to adjust the ISTD concentration on a sample basis when you have the need to control that part of the quantitation. Thank you for your attention.